Hello. Imagine walking into a room where half the world is waiting to cheer for you, and the other half is waiting to tear you apart. That's exactly what happened this week when Prince Harry, son of the late Princess Diana, grandson of Queen Elizabeth II, returned to the United Kingdom under a cloud of controversy. He wasn't here for royal duty. He wasn't here for pomp and pageantry. He was here for something far more personal and perhaps far more divisive. But before we dive in, welcome to my channel. If you love exploring the untold stories behind today's headlines, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a deep dive like this one. Trust me, you won't want to miss what we're about to uncover. Prince Harry, now 40 years old, touched down in the UK just days ago. It was his first return since the crushing legal battle stripped him of taxpayer-funded security in Britain. Already the stakes were high. Every movement watched, every expression dissected. But then, he made a move that no one expected. He pulled out his checkbook, and with one bold stroke of the pen, donated a staggering £1.1 million of his own money to children in need, a charity focused on helping young people scarred by violence. On paper, it sounds heroic, noble, the kind of thing that should silence critics. After all, what could be wrong with giving millions to a charity protecting vulnerable children? And yet, within hours, the backlash was louder than the applause. The UK press pounced. Morning talk shows opened their polls. And social media became a battlefield. A national debate ignited. Was Harry's donation an act of compassion or a calculated performance? On the morning of September 10th, a poll was broadcast across the country. The question was simple. Do you believe Prince Harry's £1.1 million donation was genuine? By the end of the day, the result was split right down the middle. 49.9% said yes. 50.1% said no. Almost perfectly divided. A nation unsure whether to applaud or accuse. Half the country sees a savior. The other half sees a schemer. One user snarled, "Given many families are struggling across the UK, him flashing his cash makes him a patronizing, attention-seeking poshie in my eyes." Another mocked him, saying he didn't need to publicize it. It's a PR stunt. He's come with his begging bowl to the bank of dad. But others rushed his defense. One user fired back. Harry donates £1.1 million to a children's charity, and it's called a charm offensive. Meanwhile, MPs hand billions to their mates, and it's called business. Another pleaded. Genuine or not, he's helping kids stay safe. Isn't that the point? So who's right? Is Prince Harry the villain his critics paint him to be? Or is he a man haunted by the very legacy that makes generosity impossible without suspicion? To answer that, we need to step back in time. To understand Harry, we must understand the world that shaped him. The boy who walked behind his mother's coffin at only 12 years old, under the eyes of millions. The man who fought in Afghanistan, trying desperately to forge an identity outside the palace gates. And now, the Duke exiled from his homeland, trying, perhaps clumsily, to prove he still matters, not as a prince but as a human being. But here's the cruel irony. Every move Harry makes is measured not just by its merit, but by its motives. When he gives nothing, he's accused of selfishness. When he gives millions, he's accused of seeking attention. Can anyone in his position ever truly win? Or is Harry locked in a game he can never escape, a game his own family mastered long ago? You see, the monarchy thrives on perception. Appearances are not just important, they are everything. A smile at the right moment, a wave in the rain, silence in the face of scandal. The royal family has survived centuries by controlling their narrative with precision, and here is Harry breaking that sacred rule, speaking openly, giving loudly, refusing to play the game quietly in the shadows. That, to his critics, is unforgivable. But maybe that's the point. Maybe Harry doesn't want to be like them. Maybe his donation wasn't a charm offensive, but a challenge, a way of saying, yes, I may be an outcast, but I will not be silent. Still, the question lingers like a shadow. Was this act for the children or for the cameras? As Harry laid a wreath on the 3rd anniversary of Queen Elizabeth II's death, the symbolism was impossible to ignore. Here stood a man who once represented continuity, now standing on the outside looking in. the grandson honoring his grandmother, yet estranged from a very family she held together. For many, the wreath was a gesture of respect. For others, it was a carefully staged image designed to stir hearts at the very moment his donation stirred controversy. Coincidence or strategy? And if it was strategy, we must ask, who taught him to play this game of optics in the first place? Was it not the same institution that now condemns him? Consider this. Diana was famous not for her titles, but for her touch, for holding hands with AIDS patients when the world recoiled, for walking through landmine fields when others stayed behind barriers. She understood that visibility mattered, that sometimes showing the world you care was as important as caring itself. And Harry, her son, grew up watching it. Is it any wonder, then, that his acts of charity are loud, visible, undeniable? Maybe, in his own flawed way, Harry is simply carrying on a legacy. But here's the tragedy. Diana's visibility made her beloved, but it also made her a target. And Harry knows better than anyone how that story ended. Buried under roses, hunted by cameras, forever silenced. So as Harry writes million-pound checks in her honor, are we watching a son continue his mother's mission, or are we watching a man slowly being consumed by the very spotlight that killed her? Which brings us back to that poll. 50% yes, 50% no. Half the nation sees compassion, half sees calculation. But the deeper truth may not lie in what Harry did, but in what we, the public, need from him. We want him to be a savior. We want him to be a scandal. What we do not allow him to be is human. And maybe that is the real tragedy of Prince Harry's £1.1 million donation. Because the story isn't over. Not even close. The donation was only the beginning, and what came next may shock you. Prince Harry's donation wasn't just money. It was a spark thrown into dry grass. And the fire it started is still burning. Because the real story here isn't simply about generosity or PR. It's about trust. Broken trust. And the question that refuses to die. Can Harry ever rebuild what's been lost? On that night, surrounded by children battling illnesses most adults couldn't bear, Harry appeared genuine, tender, even joyful. Cameras capture him laughing, crouching down, listening with the kind of patience that felt sincere. Yet even in these moments, the whispers wouldn't stop. Some critics insisted he was using the children as a backdrop, another chapter in the saga of Prince Harry versus the Crown. But ask yourself, what kind of man sits with dying children just for a photo op? Is that who Harry has become? Or is this who Harry has always been, and we're too blinded by headlines to see it? The parallels with his mother are undeniable. Diana mastered the power of empathy in public. She knew that touching a child's hand in front of cameras wasn't exploitation. It was demonstration. Proof to the world that compassion existed at the highest levels of power. Maybe Harry, in his own way, is trying to remind us of that. But there's a danger here, because when empathy collides with politics, the lines blur fast. And Harry's life is one endless blur of lines. Son of a future king, yet stripped of royal duties. Brother to the heir, yet locked in an icy silence with William. Husband to Meghan, yet accused of betraying his family. Every action he takes is pulled apart by critics and fans alike, until the truth is no longer clear. Take this donation. On the surface, £1.1 million to help children in Nottingham escape cycles of violence sounds undeniably good. That money will fund safe spaces, mentors, and resources that could literally save lives. But dig deeper and the questions multiply. Why Nottingham? Why now? Why announce it publicly? Was it coincidence that the gift came during his first UK visit since losing a security battle? Or was it carefully timed, a narrative reset? In the theater of monarchy, nothing is ever truly accidental. To Harry's critics, this was classic distraction politics, a way to change the subject from court defeats and family rifts. To supporters, though, it was the opposite, a declaration that Harry doesn't need a crown to lead, that his power lies in choosing where his money, his platform, and his heart go. So which is it? The manipulator or the maverick? This isn't just about a single donation. It's about the larger war Harry is fighting, a war for narrative, The palace has centuries of control, billions in resources, and the silence of tradition on its side. Harry? He has his voice and his checkbook, but does money buy redemption? Or does it only deepen suspicion? 3 years have passed since Queen Elizabeth II's death. 3 years since Harry last stood alongside his family at a major royal event. In that time, bridges have burned and walls have risen. His donation, however generous, may not rebuild those bridges. In fact, it may only widen the divide. Some royal insiders whisper that Charles sees Harry's loud philanthropy as a direct challenge to the institution, that every gesture Harry makes outside palace walls is, intentionally or not, a reminder that he doesn't need the crown. And to a monarchy obsessed with image, that might be the greatest threat of all. Think of the irony. A family worth billions shaken not by politics, not by war, but by one man's decision to give money away. Voice 1, he should have kept it private. Voice 2, if he's genuine, why announce it? Voice 3, others give quietly. Why can't he? But here's the uncomfortable truth. If Harry had donated in secret, the very same critics would have accused him of doing nothing. If he had stayed silent, they would have called him selfish. He is caught in a paradox with no escape. Damned if he does. Damned if he doesn't. And so, we are left with a man who cannot win. A man haunted by his mother's ghost, hunted by the world's cameras, and mistrusted by the very family that raised him. The £1.1 million donation was not just a gift. It was a message, a cry, perhaps even a challenge, to his critics, to the crown, and maybe even to himself. But here's the final twist. For all the outrage, for all the debate, one fact remains undeniable. Children in Nottingham will now have safer lives because of Harry's act. Lives will be changed. Futures will be rewritten. Whatever his motives, the outcome is real. And maybe, just maybe, that matters more than the noise. So we are left with one haunting question. Does intention matter more than impact? Or is impact all that matters? And as Harry boards his plane back to America, leaving behind the land of his birth, the country that both loved and rejected him, that question lingers in the air like smoke. Was his donation an act of healing? Or simply the latest act in a never-ending drama? Perhaps only history will decide. But as you sit there watching, ask yourself, if you had the power to change lives with a single act, would you care more about how people judge you or about the lives you saved? And if Harry is willing to be judged, even vilified, for giving, what does that say about us, the ones who judge? In the end, maybe Harry isn't a hero. Maybe he isn't a villain. Maybe he's just human, flawed, stubborn, scarred, but still reaching for something good in a world that refuses to let him forget who he is. The prince who walked behind his mother's coffin. The soldier who fought in foreign deserts. The exile who still longs for home. And the man who, in the face of doubt, chose to give. Is that enough? Or will we ever let it be enough? The story of Prince Harry is still being written. Thank you for watching. If this video made you think, if it challenged your perspective, then don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Was Harry's donation genuine, or just another chapter in the royal drama? I'll be reading every word.